Today we're going to do the do's and don'ts on the 4R100 tranny. This is out of an 03 Ford supercharged Lightning pickup. It comes in burned up. We're going to start here at the back first. On the Ford Lightnings, they put a lot bigger yoke that slides in the back here. The bushing is different and the seal is different. So if you order an overhaul kit for this transmission, you will not get this seal and you will not get this bushing. So you have to ask for it separately when you go and do that. Now this tranny still has the input speed sensor, your output speed sensor. It's got your neutral safety switch to when you move your park or your shifter lever on the dash, it tells the computer what gear you're in to start it, neutral, park, reverse, back up, or whatever. Let's get into this thing and see what we got. Ford has changed this tranny multiple times. From the 4R100, what you're looking at here, to the E40D, which is an Overdrive 2. They've just changed some pieces inside it. Steel planets and bigger bearings and stuff like that. And this is that wheel that this output speed sensor counts. When the drive shaft is turning, it sits here and counts this. Like that. And then right here, if you see here, this is your park. See how that, watch this, bang, locks right in there, you take it out, put it back in there, locks right back in park, the drive shaft does not turn. So that is the park on this unit right here. Now Ford did do something on this tranny right here. They did put a cooler bypass system in it to where if the cooler up on the front of the vehicle gets any type of restriction, anything like that, it will physically bypass the fluid and put it right back into the tranny. That way the tranny doesn't ever starve for any type of lubrication. Now the tranny will get hot if it does start happening, and if it restricts it too bad, it'll actually bring on the converter clutch in the front and kill the motor when you come to stop, or if you put it in reverse, that will happen. So Ford did protect themselves a little bit right there. You have to replace it on every rebuild. If you don't, it will come back and bite you. These are very critical. There's actually a ball and spring right in here to where if it builds up too much pressure, it'll push that ball open and just bypass the cooler and just do a circle with it into the transmission. Now here is your electronic solenoid connection right here. Now this tranny here doesn't have individual solenoids. It's what we call a solenoid pack on the inside of the transmission. Ford has designed this tranny so many different times, especially in the pump area. The load area back in the back where the thrust washer is. They actually, this one doesn't have one now. It's actually got a thrust bearing back there to where you can put a lot of load in the first gear. Because first gear, once you get the weight moving, everything else is not bad, but just getting that weight moving puts a lot of force on the back of the tranny back there. Now this here is your electronic solenoid pack here. You see the solenoids, each one is individual. So when we change this out on every rebuild, we have to change this whole unit right here. Instead of some trannies just have them all over the tranny. So that's a kind of expensive part right off the bat, but once you shove metal through it, there is no cleaning the metal out. Now this here is the accumulator body for shift feel. So if you want to make this tranny shift a little bit firmer, we can go in here and play with this thing right here. Now what we got is, in some of the other videos I was talking about these accumulator pistons right here that when it makes a second gear shift, it'll push this down and control how the clutch comes on. Well, this has it a different way. It has it in the valve body right here. There's a valve right here. You can see that one there. Well, there's another one in this chamber right here. Well, this is a two-stage accumulator system right here where Ford uses. What they do is this pushes on this one. Once it gets so far, then it pushes on this one. So it's like a dual stage, but it's inside this bore right here. Say, here's your third gear, here's your overdrive, here's your fourth gear, and so on like that. That's how that's designed. Ford's kind of different in every way when they do their thing. Now this piece right here is your reverse engagement control valve body, and it's your 1-2 control valve body. You have these valves in here right here like this. Well, this tranny after rebuild, even from day one, whether it's rebuilt or not, they've always had a real slow reverse. And what we do is we go in there and take this spring out right here and just leave it completely out, and it brings on reverse so much quicker. You know, instead of putting in drive or whatever, backing up, putting in reverse, and you're sitting there waiting for like a 2-second count. This will eliminate that if you take that spring out right there. Now, this is basically what we call like an auxiliary valve body. You know, you still have your control check balls here and here in your trough. Now, some of it, like there's one not here, some of these don't take all these balls. You got to watch what you're doing because not all of them take them all. This one here has 4 in it. And they are different size. You got 2 big ones and 2 small ones. And then you have the rest of your remaining valve body. So this has to be very clean when you put this back. As you can see in this pan right here, this tranny does have a lot of burnt frictions that we're going to get inside and get to. And I'll show you exactly how this works and how we can make it better. It's all about making them better. We do a lot of high horsepower units, so we can put all that into these units here and really make them work nice. You know, people's heard of adding clutches to drums and stuff like that. Well, you can do that to this tranny too. So, but you just got to know how to do it, and it makes a big difference. Just adding one clutch to one drum changes that whole system up to where it spans a lot more power, a lot more torque, and stuff like that. Now what we got here, this servo piston right here, that is what brings on your engine braking band. As you pull it from 3rd to 2nd gear, you get that feeling where it pulls you back. That's what this piston does. It comes in there, and there's a band in here, right here, that will apply when you pull that shifter down into a 2nd gear. Now also, anytime we rebuild our trannies, as we build them back, we come back through here and we air check everything. That way, when we get this unit back together like this, we know it is all the seals are sealing good and stuff like that, that we don't ever have to go back into this unit. Now, not all units when you put them in cars feel just the way I want them to feel. And I've been doing it so long, I know I can go back in here without pulling this tranny out, and I can change certain things, you know, to feed check balls and stuff like that, to make 3rd gear feel better, 4th gear feel better, or so on. So I'm very particular about how these units leave our shop, and if I don't like it, it ain't leaving. So, but here we got here, I'm going to show you a little air test. This here hole right here will apply the intermediate clutch on the inside of the transmission, which is 2nd gear. You can't hear that one, so my 2nd gear could be burnt plumb up and got a blowed seal. Now we're going to go over here to the forward clutch that moves the vehicle forward. Now you can physically hear that one coming on the inside. Now here, right down in here is your direct. This is your third gear and your reverse clutch. Can you hear that? You can hear that coming on. Just like that. Now here's your overdrive clutch. Did you hear that? You can hear that coming on with that air. But down here in the bottom is another one. It's called your low reverse clutch. I'm not going to blow in that hole because there's so much fluid in there that I believe I'll probably get a bath. But I can physically air check that too. But with this clutch coming on, your third gear clutch coming on, this vehicle backs up. So let's get down in here a little bit deeper. Bolts I put right here are real critical on how you put them back in. They have Loctite on them right here to tighten them, but these bolts only torque like 8 inch-pounds or 8 foot-pounds, excuse me. And why it's so little is because this support down in here has a gap in it. So when you tighten these bolts down, it'll pull it down and bow it in the middle right here. Because there's a gap in between the two pieces. That's why you torque that very minimum. When these trannies first come out, we had big issues with cross leaks right here with the overhaul gasket kits. And now when you get an overhaul gasket kit, this main gasket right here that goes here is probably 80,000 stick now to give it some type of formation so it can kind of mold to it when you tighten it down, because they still have an issue right here. We are getting better gasket sets and stuff now to rebuild this stuff compared to a long time ago. Now here's your lockup seal, just like I showed you on your GMs and stuff like that. Without this, if you leave that off, you won't have no lockup on your torque converter. So that is what that is. Now, Ford had a bad problem a long time ago with material that they were using on their front seals, causing front seal leaks because of the fluids that we use had a chemical reaction with the rubber, and it was a gray material just like this one here. So you can see this has already been starting to leak, and they do it over time, but they do got a new seal now that this material is black and it doesn't have that chemical reaction with the fluid that they have out nowadays. I'm going to get this out. It might be stuck. You never want to pry right here. Let me show you something. If you take and pry right here hard, you'll break this piece off right here. You don't want to do that. You can get that and pry and break that off, and then you're going to buy you a $800 to $1,000 case. So I'm going to try to see if I can get my slide hammer in here and pull on this a little bit. See if I can get this out. We might have an issue down in here keeping this from just coming out, because normally I can just pull them out the way I was doing it real easy. There we go. Just had to hit it a little harder. Now Ford, like I was telling you earlier, has changed this pump so many times. I bet it cost them millions of dollars to get their stuff together on this thing. And this is finally what they come up with when they got it done. They were having problems with the gears being too small, the feed holes being too small. And I think this thing's been changed, I know, at least 4 times that I know of. And that was just in the E40D. This is the 4R100. So it's a totally different deal. But what they've come in here and done is they just couldn't get enough volume out of these pumps to basically operate everything that was going on inside this unit. So what they did is they changed these feed holes right here for suction and stuff to feed this pump, and the gear size. I could go over there and get off my shelf over there and show you the different sizes and the different forms of these teeth and the size of these holes that they finally settled with. So you really got to be careful when you put a pump in one of these. Anytime you swap parts in these units, you better be careful. Now if you rebuild this train and you don't have to swap hard parts and stuff like that, and you can just go put clutches and seals and stuff in it, you're going to be okay. But if you start grabbing stuff off the shelf and don't know what you're looking at, you're going to be in trouble. Well, this tranny has a pulse width modulating lockup system in the torque converter right here. This torque converter has 3 clutches in it, where your early design only had 1. And how you can tell is, I don't know if you can see these ripples right here on the side of this converter. That will tell you that that is a triple disc converter from the factory. And it is a 6-lug supercharged application, just like your diesel. So, but when you have a pulse width modulating lockup system, this feed orifice right here has been removed. If you have a on and off lockup system, there will be an orifice in there with about a 70 thousandths hole. So if you put that in a pulse width modulating lockup system, this clutch is going to burn up no matter how you look at it. It will be done. So you better remember that and look at that plug right there. This one's missing. It is a pulse width modulating system. You have a multi-clutch converter. If you put a pulse width modulating lockup system with a single clutch converter, it is doomed too. It will not work. Well, this here is your engine brake clutch right here. When you let off the gas, this clutch comes on, and you get your engine braking right there. This is your overdrive sun gear, your sprag. This is your overdrive Planetary. That's down in here. You got your sprag right here. Now they did change this sprag up a couple different times too, so like I say, when you go to start swapping parts, you better look what you're doing. Now this is your overdrive clutch right here. When I blew through this hole right here for overdrive, this is what you were hearing coming on. You got a 3-clutch overdrive. Now, the 4R100s and the later E40Ds did have a bonded piston here. Some of them did not have a bonded piston, so it just varies. Just make sure what you take out you put back in, because it does make a difference. Now, we had this piston in here like this, so when I blew through that hole, this piston come up and applied this overdrive clutch right here. Well, this is a 2-stage piston assembly. It's got another piston on the back right here. So when you got second gear coming on, which I'm going to pull this out right here, your center support, and now we have your second gear clutch that's right down here that this piston here applies. But let's go into some detail a little bit right here. On some changes that they did. This is the late version. This is a early model E40D shaft, and the support, and this piece right here. I'm going to give you some idea. Well, here's one. Well, see here how this has this nub on it right here, and this one doesn't. But what they did is they had issues with this support right here like this, and they had issues with this small bushing wearing all the time because there's just so much weight on it, and it just would not hold up. So what they did is instead of doing that, they come in here and they added a bearing right here. And now they took that off. This sets on there like that. And what they did is they took this plug right here. This is a kit that you can buy. You take that bushing out and put this cup plug in there. If you just leave that an open hole, all your lubrication oil will just fall into the pan just right past, because there's nothing plugging it no more. See right there? So you have to put that in there to restrict it, and that way all these other holes will spray oil and lubricate everything down there. But that is a really good upgrade that they did do. So you got to be careful. Like I said, it goes back to swapping parts. It's easy to grab this out, put it in there if you need this shaft. So you got to be really careful. Here is your engine brake band I was talking about when you applied it, moved it from third to second gear. You had this come on like right here, and it would push on that and apply that around this drum right here, like that. That's how that works. You pull it down to second. Now, this right here is your second gear clutch. They've come out and redesigned this so many times too, with thicker clutches, thinner steels, just mismatching. I mean, it's crazy. When you take this apart, you look at it, you put it back exactly how it is, because I haven't found any information on this yet. I've called everybody in the world to try to figure out, because I get these units in all the time, barn up, and I can tell somebody has messed with it, and it's hard to determine what thickness of steels and clutches you need to put back in here. So there's no information on it, so just put back what's in there to come out. Now, here's another design. This is your intermediate sprag. It spins this way and locks this way. Well, they come out with a second design of this thing. Well, actually, this is the second design. This is another design. This is called a diode sprag. You can barely hear it, and it locks. It will not turn. This is basically the same thing right here. But they had such a failure rate with these right here. If you ever get one in, you have to replace the whole drum and all, because the way this locks on here, like that, and then you got a snap ring that holds it on. These are junk. You throw them away. Now, this here is got the good design sprag assembly in it. Right here, it's like this. Plenty of locks. This is the new design. It lasts forever. I mean, like that. But you want to go in here and check for wear. Any hammer marks, or see anything where that thing's been locking on this drum right here. Looks really good. I'm going to show you some another stuff here on this. If you don't know what you're doing, again, this is where we're going to get into an issue. I get them in here all the time. This is a gas vehicle. It's just got splines halfway down this drum. This is a diesel. It's got splines all the way down the drum. If you put this drum here in a diesel, it will spin these splines out right here, because this shaft right here locks into that right there. I can get it in there. Like that. Well, you're missing half the spline. Diesel, gas. So diesels make so much torque that if you put this in there, it will pop that spline the first time they get on it with their chips and big injectors and stuff like that. So you get a diesel one in here, it's got it in there, you better find you one, because if not, it's going to come back on you. Now, this is the forward drum that moves the vehicle forward. This is your third gear drum that moves it in third gear. I'm going to give you a little secret. I don't like to give it all away. But this drum only has 4 clutches in it, just like that. See that? Well, let me show you a little secret here. If you take this forward drum right here, it's going to have that many 4 clutches moving. But that's all it needs. because this, once you put this in drive, this clutch stays on all the time. Well, this clutch here comes on under load. So when it shifts to third gear, it has to stop it under a real heavy load. Well, this one comes on to move it forward. You're sitting there idling. So once it's on, it's real an easy clutch. But you can take this plate out of the bottom of this forward clutch right here. See how thin it is? You can take this thick plate out right here, set it aside, take and put this back in here like this. This is an example how you add another clutch to a drum. This steel right here is the same on these, so you can just grab another steel. The clutch is not the same, but it will fit in there for now for an example. But look, I'm adding another clutch. I'm going to put this plate in here just like that. I'm going to go grab my snap ring, but what I'm going to grab is, I'm going to go grab me a 350K snap ring out of a 350 GM transmission, which is a little thicker, and then I'm going to put it in there. If I had one over there real quick, I could put it in. But I don't have one to show you real quick, but I mean, you can get a 350 snake snap ring. It fits right in there. Now you just added an extra clutch to that drum. Now you got 5 clutches in there and just made it so much better. So you don't want to do it to the forward clutch, but you can do it, but you will have issues with it rubbing down here. Let me show you something. Before I show you that, I'm going to show you this. This is a steel planet. Most gas trannies have aluminum planet in it. Being that it's supercharged and a 4R100, it's got the steel planet in it, and all diesels have steel planets. If you get one in it that's got aluminum in it, you better buy the steel one, because if not, it's going to come back and bite you. It will break it out. Now, this is what I was talking about. This sets down in here like this. So if you take and add another clutch in here and use this plate here in this forward drum, it will rub right down in here. So you cannot do that. So just do your 5 clutch here, leave your 4 clutch alone in your forward. Check your splines, make sure you're good there, because if not, it will grab you. This is your lower planetary assembly. Get it out of there. And it is steel too. Now they do make them in aluminum. So this is a 6 pinion here. They make them in a 5. They make them in a 4 pinion. Down here, Ford made some changes too on the C6 3-speed and on the E40D and this 4R100. Okay, where Ford had their issue was, in first gear, there's so much load taking off, pulling big trailers and stuff like that, they had issues with cooking thrust washers out of them. This one here is a lot bigger than normal, than the 400-100s and the C6s. But you go back here, they added a bearing, where there used to be a thrust washer right here that would rub down here on this race, and the load rate on that race was just too much, so Ford finally upgraded it to a bearing. But they had to change the thickness of this and stuff like that, but they did it multiple times, so you really got to be careful when you change this out too if it comes out bad, because this sprag right here also runs on that. See? Let me... Well, I found my material that come out of my pan. That you notice that when I took this unit apart, we didn't find any burnt clutches in third gear. We didn't find any burnt clutches in overdrive. We didn't find any burnt clutches in forward. You know, your engine brake band is good. But if you go back here and look, your reverse clutch is burned up. He didn't lose third because his third gear clutch is good, so all his forward gears were fine. But he lost reverse because your third gear clutch comes on and your reverse clutch comes on to back up. Now, it goes back to, I was telling you earlier in the video that this tranny has a bad problem about delays in reverse. So, if you get stuck or anything like that, you have to go forward, stop, put it in reverse, wait on it to go in and then back up. And it's just daily driving too. I mean, you can go into a Walmart park, pull back out, put it in reverse, you sit there for a second. So these clutches wear really fast, and they even add a wave to make reverse even softer because they have no wave in third gear. So all their cushioning in third gear is in the accumulator body, like I showed you earlier. But they still soften it. Now, let me tell you something. We buy a Transgo kit and rebuilt kit, shift kit, and put in these things. And they call to put a plug down in this hole that restricts that hole just a little bit. Never put that in. When I first did this a long time ago, I put that in a couple times and the customer brought it right back because it just delayed too long in reverse. So leave that alone, put the kit in, it'll work fine. Add your other clutch to fifth gear, will be fine. Make sure this is missing. If it's a pulse width modulating, if it's missing and it's a non-pole, you better put it in. So this is your 4-wheel overview. Stay tuned.